Welcome into this Friday, January the 15th edition of the Locked On Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Ladika, and if you're listening into this podcast today, we made it. We made it to Friday, almost to the end of the week. Obviously, it's been a very, very long couple weeks here to begin the 2021 year. And as I mentioned on my Wednesday podcast, I just hope that these podcasts can help serve as just a little break from what's going on, just a little distraction from what's going on in our country. It's certainly going through a lot of turmoil right now. And it can be good to take a mental break from what's going on. So hopefully that's what I can do for you here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. A joke that Jimmy Fallon made on the Tonight Show earlier this week. I believe it was either Jimmy Fallon or maybe it was Stephen Colbert. It was one of those two I was watching on YouTube earlier this week, but I believe it was Jimmy Fallon who made a joke where, he said 2021 is like the end of a Scooby-Doo episode where the villain at the end pulls off his mask and it's just 2020 all over again, so I got a little kick out of that, but it's sadly very accurate. So hopefully this can serve as a little distraction for you as we try and navigate, the kind of turmoil that the country is going through right now. But without further ado, let's jump right in. I do want to apologize right off the bat if it does sound a little bit echoey. I just moved into a new apartment. I just started a new job up in North Dakota. I just finished up my second week at my new job, but I'm still working on finishing up or furnishing my apartment. So it's still a little bit empty in here. So if it does sound a little bit echoey, I apologize about that. There's just not much I can do about that right now. But without further ado, let's jump right in here. I do appreciate you listening in. If you're listening in on any one of your favorite podcast platforms, or if you are tuning in on the 9 News website, this will be my third video podcast episode that will be published to 9 News as part of the partnership between 9 News and Tegna and the Locked On Podcast Network. So let's jump right in here. This will be the second episode of my 2021 schedule preview series. If you missed my Wednesday episode, go tune into that one as well. But I just kind of explained how I will be breaking down the 2021 season by months, just to kind of, give you a look at what's coming in each month, who the Rockies are going to be matched up against in each month, and what you can kind of expect. I'll give a few of my takeaways from each month as well. But before we jump into that, I do want to bring up just a little bit of news that happened this week for the Rockies. They did avoid arbitration with Antonio Senzatella and Michael Gibbons. Michael Gibbons, you'll remember they acquired at the trade deadline from the Baltimore Orioles in 2020. He was under team control for 2 more years, counting the 2020 season. So obviously the Rockies still have him under control for the 2021 campaign. But Antonio Senzatella was awarded a contract, $3 million for this upcoming year. That happened on Tuesday. And Michael Gibbons was given $4.05 million on Thursday, yesterday, as you're listening in on this episode today on Friday. But Antonio Senzatella, incredibly well-deserved. I certainly did not see the kind of season that Antonio Senzatella had. I didn't see that coming. I was very pleasantly surprised. He established himself as one of the best pitchers in the major leagues this year. He didn't strike a whole lot of guys out, but he made it work. The ground ball percentage skyrocketed for Senzatella. He was limiting hard contact, and it paid big dividends for him, as I've sung his praises on this podcast since I took over as the host of the Locked On Rockies podcast in early December. But Antonio Senzatella, very well deserved that $3 million contract. I'm sure that's more than he was expecting to get. That was more than I was expecting him to get as well. And Michael Gibbons as well, just over $4 million, $4.05 million for this upcoming year. He really underwhelmed at the Rockies in the 2020 season, but he does have a pretty consistent track record of being effective at the major league level. He has spent 5 or 6 years with the Baltimore Orioles before coming over to the Colorado Rockies. I believe the 2020 season was going to be his 6th full year with the Orioles before he was traded to the Rockies at the trade deadline. But every year with the Orioles, he had posted an ERA plus of above 100. Now, if you don't remember, ERA plus is just a park adjusted ERA metric, where 100 is league average. Anything above 100 is better than league average. So Michael Gibbons, super great track record. He's been consistently great. And also with the 2020 season, it was only 60 games anyway. You kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt that happened during this past year anyway. So, I'm excited to see what Michael Gibbons can do over the course of a full season. He does have the track record of durability as well. He's appeared in at least 60 games quite a few times in his career as well. So excited to see what happens with Gibbons this year. Obviously, it'll be, hopefully Antonio Senzatella will be able to replicate that success in 2021 as well that he saw this past year. But now let's kind of switch gears here a little bit and jump right into the season the season preview. This will be, I'm going to break down the month of May for the Rockies in 2021. And again, if you missed the part 1 of my series that happened on this past Wednesday, so you should go and tune into that where I break down the month of April, so you're all caught up. But let's jump right in here to May. So on May 1st and the 2nd, that is a Saturday and Sunday, the Rockies will finish up that series in Arizona at Chase Field. So it'll be a road series. That 7-game road trip that they're on, that'll be the conclusion of that road trip on May the 1st and the 2nd. And then after that Sunday game, they'll fly back to Denver for a 3-game homestand. That'll be May 3rd through the 5th, a Monday through Wednesday against the San Francisco Giants. They'll see the Giants again in early May after they also matched up with San Francisco in April as well, before an off day on Thursday, May the 6th. Now, that'll be the 5th day off that the Rockies will have had in the first month plus of the season. So the Rockies certainly getting a lot of rest early on in the season. That, if obviously just naturally looking ahead, that'll mean that the Rockies will have probably, some prolonged stretches without days off coming up later on in the season. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on as well, but I'll break that down when we come to it. But after that Thursday, May 6th day off, they will fly to St. Louis for a 3-game road trip against the St. Louis Cardinals on May the 7th through the 9th. That's a Friday through Sunday. Schedule makers certainly not doing the Rockies any favors early on in the 2021 campaign. But I'll get into that a little bit later. The Rockies have never matched up against the Cardinals well. And then after that 3-game series against the Cardinals, they will fly back to Denver after that Sunday game for a 7-game homestand that'll start May the 10th through the 16th. That'll be a Monday through the Sunday, take up that whole week. The first 3 games will be against the San Diego Padres, May 10th through the 12th. And then they'll wrap up that homestand with 4 games against the visiting Cincinnati Reds, now joined by the former Rockies reliever / starter, Jeff Hoffman, the centerpiece of the Troy Tulowitzki trade, who was just traded to Cincinnati earlier this offseason. So after they finish up that 7-game homestand against the Cincinnati Reds, the Rockies will go back to San Diego, or I guess I should say they'll go to San Diego and face off against the Padres for the first time this year. They'll be in San Diego for a 3-game road trip, May 17th through the 19th. That's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series. And then another day off on May the 20th, that Thursday. So after that day off, they'll fly back to Denver again for a 3-game homestand against the Diamondbacks. Matchup against Arizona some more on May 21st through the 23rd. And then they will hit the road to the East Coast. They will first hit up Queens. They'll be at Citi Field to play the New York Mets for 4 games from May 24th through the 27th. And then they will wrap up the month of May with 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates at PNC Park on May the 28th through the 30th. That will be a Friday through Sunday. So overall, just kind of break this down. They will have 5 more games against the D-backs in May. They will play 3 against the Giants, 6 against the San Diego Padres, 3 against the St. Louis Cardinals, 4 games against the Cincinnati Reds, 4 games against the New York Mets, and then 3 more against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, that means in total, 14 games against the National League West, 10 against the National League Central, and then those 4 games against the New York Mets make up the 4 games against the National League East that the Rockies will play in the month of May, along with 2 days off. Now, before I get into my takeaways here, I do want to tell you a little bit about betonline.ag. Are we ready for some football? The NFL regular season is wrapped up. The playoffs are in full swing. The divisional round is coming up this coming weekend, and there is only one place that has you covered and one place we trust: betonline.ag. Sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use that promo code LOCKEDON for your 50% welcome bonus. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in on the action. Don't forget to use that promo code LOCKEDON to receive a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And I also want to tell you a little bit about rockauto.com as well. With the ever-increasing numbers of automotive makes and models, it is now impossible to stock all the parts you need in a traditional chain storefront. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the counterman orders the parts on his computer, choosing only the brand his warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpeting. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Welcome back to this Friday, January 15th edition of the Locked On Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm Ryan Ladika, your host. And so now, after we have kind of broken down the 2021 month of May for the Colorado Rockies, I do want to get into some of my takeaways here from the month of May. I have a few. I just want to start off with just a general one here. The month of May is not going to be as National League West heavy as the month of April will be. Which I believe is good just for balance throughout the season. It's also good to get some variety in there so you don't feel like you're playing the same team over and over again. At least, as a fan watching the team, I feel that way. So I can only imagine how it must feel for the players to be matching up with the same three teams all month long. I'm sure that can get a little bit tedious as well. Kind of like, what's going to happen for the Rockies in April. So I'm sure that they'll be glad to get some variety in there in the month of May as well. I broke down a couple of the teams that the Rockies are going to be facing in April. I want to do the same for the month of May as well. Now, in the month of May, the Rockies start off again with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They will play 5 games total against the D-backs in the month of May. And the Rockies are actually usually pretty evenly matched against Arizona. It's actually kind of wild how evenly matched the Rockies are against the D-backs over the last few years. In the 2020 season, 5-5 record against Arizona. They went 500. And then in 2019, they went 10-9, so a game over 500 against Arizona 2 years ago. Then in 2018, 11-8. And then in 2017, 8-11. So you add all that up, that is a 34-33 record over the span from 2017 to the 2020 season. Only a game over 500 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And the Rockies, they're about as evenly matched with the D-backs as any two teams in baseball. It's just totally wild how this happens. They just always end up evenly matched with Arizona. And the D-backs haven't really done much this offseason. Madison Bumgarner had by far the worst year of his career. His fastball was really lacking in velocity, and he just wasn't able to put it all together in the 2020 season. And again, as I mentioned earlier on in this episode, you have to kind of really take everything that happened with 2020 with a grain of salt, just because of the extraordinary circumstances that happened. Players were in spring training. They had to shut down spring training. And then, just kind of arbitrarily train through the whole summer, not really sure what they're going to be doing, and then start up summer camp and then just play a random 60-game season. So we'll have to kind of see what happens with Madison Bumgarner in 2021. But if 2020 was any indication, it will not be a good year for Madison Bumgarner. It'll be interesting, to see if the Rockies continue to match up this evenly against the Diamondbacks. I just thought that was super interesting as I was looking over my research for this episode today. And then we will see the first games against the San Diego Padres in the 2021 season. The San Diego Padres they've probably honestly won the offseason. You can make an argument that the San Diego Padres won the offseason by acquiring Blake Snell and Yu Darvish. 2 bona fide aces they acquired, and they did it in like the span of 1 or 2 days. AJ Preller is playing chess, while everybody else is playing checkers out here. But they added Blake Snell, they added Yu Darvish, they added Victor Caratini in that Yu Darvish trade from the Chicago Cubs. Victor Caratini, low-key, a good acquisition, solid backup catcher. And they also were able to snag Ha-Seong Kim. He was a stud for 7 years over in Korea, hit a lot of homers over in Korea the last 7 years. And according to Baseball America, he was ranked number 5 in San Diego's top 10 prospects this year. So look for him to make an impact for the Padres as well. But the San Diego Padres, new and improved, they've always been a tough matchup for the Rockies anyway. But now it'll just be even more of a dogfight. They've honestly kind of risen up, not quite to the level of the Los Angeles Dodgers, but I think that they're getting up there. They finally arrived. We've been saying it for years now. The Padres are coming. They're not here yet, but they got a good farm system, and they're here now. And they're not messing around. AJ Preller's not messing around. He made some noise this offseason, and he's ready to see his team win some games. But really, what I want to highlight here is the really, really tough stretch for the Rockies that'll be between May 7th and May 12th. 3 games in St. Louis and then 3 games back home against the Padres. So starting off against the St. Louis Cardinals, they will be on the road in St. Louis, where the Rockies never, ever, ever, ever win. The Rockies, since 2017, have gone 6-14 against the St. Louis Cardinals. They got swept in St. Louis in 20. I'll kind of break down what happened in St. Louis the last 3 years. They got swept in 3 games in St. Louis in 2017. They went 1-3 in St. Louis in 2018. They also got walked off twice that series. And then they lost all 4 in 2019 in St. Louis. So over the last 3 years, they've won exactly 1 game on the road against the Cardinals. And this is just one of those places where the Rockies just simply cannot find ways to win. Even in the close games where it looks like, they're leading in the late innings, it looks like they may be able to pull it off. They're just never able to do it. They've only won 1 game on the road against the Cardinals in the last 3 years since the quote unquote contention window started in 2017. So that'll be a tough test for the Rockies early on. And then they come right back home and face the Padres, where they already crushed the Rockies anyway at Coors Field, and they're now a lot better. Over the last couple of years, the Rockies have gone 14-15 against the Padres. They've given up 185 runs, which equates to 6.4 runs per game to the Padres. And that just tells the story right there of how the Rockies always struggle to beat San Diego, especially at Coors Field. Guys like Will Myers, they just come here or they come to Denver and they just rake. In 2019, obviously I'm not going to detail 2020 because again, we have to take those statistics with a grain of salt. But in 2019, if anyone they saw with any kind of regularity, they hit the best against the Colorado Rockies. They put up an 850 OPS overall, and then in 10 games at Coors Field in 2019, they put up a 925 OPS. Now, I wanted to go back just to 2019 because the Rockies largely have the same roster as they did 2 years ago anyway. But the San Diego Padres always present a tough test for the Colorado Rockies, no matter where they play, but especially at Coors Field. So that tough stretch of playing the Cardinals on the road and then coming home to play the San Diego Padres, that'll really be where the Rockies can really prove, if they get off to a good start to the season, if they're for real, or they may flop in that 6-game stretch. So that'll certainly be a 6-game stretch to keep your eye on as well if you're a Rockies fan. So that'll just about do it for this edition of the Locked On Rockies podcast. Before I let you go, I do want to tell you about Locked On Bets, the relatively new show that the Locked On Podcast Network has hosted. 2020 is mercifully over. It's time for a fresh start and a few more wins. If you're betting this year and want more wins, listen to Locked On Bets with your boy Q and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports. They are picking college basketball, football, and NBA locks all winter long. Subscribe to Locked On Bets wherever you get your podcasts. So again, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can get in touch with the show on Twitter is probably the best way to reach me at LO Rockies. You can also follow my personal Twitter account at Ryan Ladika. My name is spelled right there on the screen if you're tuning in on the 9 News website, or you can find me at RYANLAD as in David IKA. And yeah, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope to see you again here next week on all your favorite podcast platforms for more Rockies news and analysis and the continuation of the 2021 series preview. Again, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next week.